Okay, he says a formal introduction should be there. I am Avinash Jha, and I work as librarian in Center for the Study of Developing Societies, and I have been interested in doing research in philosophy. And I had joined as Navjyoti's student, as a PhD student many years ago. And because I was just interested in learning from him. So even though I'm in Delhi, he was in Hyderabad. I had spent 2 semesters doing some courses there, and even though I know Navjyoti from IIT Kanpur days.
You see, when friends, when Anuradha ji and Sahastra Buddhe and everybody lit this lamp, I was suddenly reminded of a very great dance tradition from Kerala. Kudiyattam is the name, and what they do is that they lit the lamp, which is just less than the height of the dancer. So what happens is that the face is embossed. Navjyoti in my mind is always an embossed presence. Whenever I'm thinking of something, I always knock the door of Navjyoti, and he always kindly opens it, and we, in a sense, engage into a dialogue, whether he's there in the world or not. It was years back when I was told about him by Dharampal, and I was very close to him, and this is all later period of Dharampal. The later period, which means quite a controversial period, for which, Ashish Nandi the other day was telling me that Dharampal told me such a thing in his sane days. So, of course, the later days were not so sane. But anyway, I'm a medical person, so I consider insanity as an extension of sanity, and there's no borderline. So for me, it was not exactly, and the political incorrectness is the extension of political correctness. So anyway, so he told me about Navjyoti, and that you must meet him. But in his lifetime, I couldn't. And it was only after his death, there was a seminar in CSDS. And the seminar was on Dharampal. And there was Navjyoti, and he spoke about very deeply and very passionately about Dharampal. And I only could understand one thing, that here is a person who is taking a completely different tangent, a completely different point of view to understand Dharampal. And that somehow struck me very deeply. Anyway, then we became very close friends, and the time we came together was the phase when he got very deeply interested in arts. And it so happens that I am a writer. So we could, gel together very well. And of course, after 2-3 meetings, 4 meetings, I publish a magazine in Hindi, which is called Samas, which is a compound word. And what I do is that for every issue of my magazine, I conduct a very long conversation with any one of the persons whom I think can greatly contribute to the thoughts around Indian civilization. And I found, of course, I did one with Dharampal when he was alive, and did some with great theatre directors, etc. And then, of course, I asked Navjyoti if I could speak to him. And we conducted a very long conversation, which is now a book, is this. And Krishnan asked me to talk about this book. Now this is in Hindi because we publish the magazine in Hindi, and the idea of this magazine is to enrich the Hindi mind, which is very deeply eroded by our Marxist in literature and arts, about this Marxist analysis of the things, which is unfortunately most of the time in my language is very crude. And we have reduced all literature, cinema and painting to some kind of a statement. I mean, it is as if the form is coincidental to the arts. So this long conversation was conducted. It was in Hyderabad, and we and I and Navjyoti would be walking, sitting, and I would be speaking to him. The first most important thing that he says there, and let me tell you another thing, that this conversation was very well received by important writers and intellectuals of North India. In fact, there was this very great poet who was very close to Lohia for years, called Kamlesh, Hindi poet, a very great poet. He said that on this conversation, one should conduct a series of seminars with people, because they are so important issues that he has raised in this 60, 70 pages, 80 pages, that it needs to be explored more deeply, on these various issues. And I found that one most important thing that Navjyoti is saying in this is that the Western philosophical concept, or the Western journey of the man as if of the thought, need to be domesticated into Indian philosophical forms. And he uses this word again and again because, I mean, there is no rejection of the Western philosophical endeavor. Of course, with its own limitations, as you have seen being put forth so brilliantly by Avinash, that how all his philosophical researches were dialogical. I mean, they are engaging very deeply with the Western philosophical tradition, and in a very specific way, not in that nebulous, amorphous way. So that, because he says what he calls Vidhayak Shakti, the creative or the constitutive power in the Indian civilization, has become weak. And that we are seeing all over. That this power to create or constitute something new, constitute something which would have the the smell, not only smell, but which will have the presence of the parampara tradition in that. The word that he uses is brilliant. He says, Nityata Nutanatva mein, in the novelty, you should have Nityata. Nityata this is what parampara is for him. So he says that to do that, to create a novelty within the tradition now, within the parampara, that power now has become feeble. That's a very major recognition, that how this power need to be regenerated, need to be reclaimed as if. And you see, in that in that observation of him, I think lies the Navjyoti's attempt to engage with these very deeply philosophical questions. Now, about arts that I know best of his, the philosophy of art that he was working on, you see, apart from everything, Navjyoti was a great storyteller. I mean, he had some very interesting stories to tell about various philosophical conceptions. And one of the stories that he was very fond of telling about, the origin of arts in India is the story that all of you might be knowing about the story of Bhayajit and all. And through